Again, thanks everybody for joining today. My name is Ben Perkins. I'm the field sales engineer for Biamp in the Western US. Today, we are going to go over contactless AV for classrooms. It's kind of a hot topic with everything that's going on. And we'll just see what Biamp's take on the contactless classroom is as we start talking about what it looks like for schools to reopen. These pictures or the diagram that I'm going to show sort of lends itself to K-12, but we could extrapolate this to, universities and higher ed as well, given the technology. So everything's scalable depending on the application. So with that, I'll dive right in. We'll have time at the end for questions. We've got an hour scheduled, but the slide deck should only take about half hour, 45 minutes. So we'll have time for questions at the end, and let's dive right in. So when we look ahead to what classrooms are going to look like moving forward for the immediate future with COVID-19 and the need for physical distancing, classrooms are going to look totally different, right? So there's going to be a need to keep physical distancing in public gathering spaces. And there's a lot of talk about potentially having in-person and remote learning going on simultaneously. So sort of instead of like an A and a B period, you'd have weeks where half the students will be on site and the other half will be remote, just to be able to maintain the distancing in the classroom. In addition, we want to minimize our touch points so we don't have to wash our hands as much, meaning anything that we can do to eliminate the interaction of the AV gear in the room is going to be of benefit to us. And then probably the most important one is we need to get buy-in from the staff, right? It needs to be easy to use. So we don't want to introduce any roadblocks to teachers that are already having to reimagine their the way that they teach. So with all that being said, it kind of is cool that Biamp has been involved in conference rooms for so long, because we're essentially turning classrooms into conference rooms. So we can leverage our technology that we've sort of perfected with in the conference space to bring that in. So now we can enable remote learning fairly easily in these classrooms, because that's, we do remote meetings all day, every day. So that leads into our, our technologies that we have for the conference room and how those can relate. So I'm just going to go over again the conference room or our sort of soft codec conferencing systems, just so we're familiar with that, and then we'll plug them into a classroom scenario and go from there. So our beam tracking microphones, the Parlé series, we recently won a Red Dot Design Award for our TCMX and TTMX. And a benefit of these, they're easy to set up. They track talkers in the room, so you don't have to steer or aim these mics. They will automatically pick up and only turn on when there's talkers in the room. If the furniture gets rearranged, you don't need to do anything to the mics. They'll just adapt on the fly. So in changing times where we're not sure how many desks we can fit in a classroom, you won't have to go in and readjust the sound system anytime they have to add or remove desks. Our sort of connection to the soft codec for enabling remote classrooms would be the XUBT. We have certification with a lot of, with 3 of the major platforms, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams Rooms, and Zoom. So that is our bridge to be able to do things like mute sync, echo cancellation offload. That's really, sort of the connection from the AV system into whatever, whether it's BYOD laptop or if there's a room PC in the room. Just a quick recap of our beam tracking microphones. These have 3 or 4 zones that automatically track talkers as they move in the space. So there's no setup other than to say how high off of the finished floor the microphones are, and they will adapt and use what we call beam weighting to choose the best zone depending on where the talker is. So very high technology here, makes it easy for teachers to walk around the room and they'll still be picked up. Also, student participants will be picked up to send their questions over to the far side for the remote students, so everybody's involved in that conversation. This is a graph showing that we have full 360-degree coverage over 3 zones with our pendant. The X series, the flush mount one that I showed on the last slide, has 4 zones, just to be able to track that much finer granularity. So very easy to install, very easy to adapt to changing room environments. Moving on to the other side of the signal chain, our Desono CIC6 ceiling speakers are designed for speech intelligibility in a conferencing application. So if you have a classroom that's turned into basically a conference room, these will work great to maximize intelligibility of the spoken word. Wide dispersion, so these are rated at 130 degrees. So you'll need fewer speakers to cover more area, which is great when we're on tight budgets with schools. And then sort of the glue that holds everything together is the Tesira Connect TC5. This is our media connection point. So all of our devices are USB extender, the XUBT, our Parlé microphones, and our DSP all sort of meet here at the Tesira Connect, and that makes the connection and sets up the media network automatically. There's no need to set up a switch, no need to worry about power. The Tesira Connect provides PoE for all the devices that need it. It's a 5-port with 4 of those ports having PoE. And then finally, obviously, since we're doing conferencing, we need a conferencing DSP. Typically, since these classrooms aren't going to need many channels, we have the VT4 Tesira Forte that has 4 channels of echo canceling. Each of our beam tracking microphones, even though they have multiple zones, they only need 1 channel of echo canceling. So we can save cost of the overall system by not needing a bunch of channels of echo canceling for our multi-channel microphones. This is sort of the brain behind the system that'll allow it to run itself. We just set it up, and the goal is to not need any outside intervention for a teacher. We have things like auto mixing, automatic gain control that's going to keep the signal at the right level. We want a system that runs itself, and the Tesira Forte is the product that will allow us to do that. And then obviously, other things we need for remote participation, we need USB cameras so far side students can see into the classroom. And then we also need, obviously, a monitor or projector, some sort of display that the teacher can put their lesson on. Biamp doesn't make these, but I'm including them just because obviously we need the video side of the classroom in order to make this happen. So putting all those pieces together, here's an example classroom. This sort of looks like K-12, but we've sort of implemented what might be some form of physical distancing to the desks to keep them 6 feet apart. And then we've put in all of our equipment to show what it would look like in a classroom setting. So you can see we've got 2 TCMX microphones with the network box, and you'll notice these are TCMX-A because that A stands for amplifier. This network box, in addition to powering the mics, will also supply enough power for 4 ceiling speakers through those 2 amplifier channels. So with 1 network connection back to our TC5, we've got 2 microphones and 4 ceiling speakers for this classroom. Very easy to interconnect. Everything is interconnected with category cables. So it's a very simple installation. Next piece is the bridge to the BYOD device. the Tesira X UBT. Here it's going into a USB hub along with the USB camera, and then that is going down into the instructor laptop. I mentioned the Desono CSE6, so we were able to cover a fairly wide, a fairly large classroom with fewer speakers because of the wide dispersion. Tesira Connect here is, you'll see that's where all the Tesira devices are being plugged into. That's the media hub, so to speak. And then the DSP obviously is going to be in a rack or credenza somewhere in the classroom. As far as interfacing with the instructor's laptop in the classroom, you'll notice here we've got an issue because we have wires and we're trying to make this contactless. So if this is a classroom that's shared amongst a few teachers during the day or some other iteration where people are changing laptops, we're introducing more touch points than we need. People aren't going to want to grab cables and plug them into their laptop. We want this to be touchless and not introduce anyone into more touches than they need. So how do we get rid of those wires and make it a truly touchless experience? We're going to talk about our new Modena family of products. Today we have two products to talk about. The Modena 1, which is they're both functionally the same as far as end user experience. The Modena 1 is a wired network device, so it plugs into an existing network. The Modena 1 Plus can also plug into an existing network, but you can see it has a couple of antennas out there because it'll host its own Wi-Fi network to allow that wireless USB and presentation on its own. And we'll talk about the network towards the end. But just a recap of what we're talking about here. In any BYOD system, typically we have an HDMI cable going to the display, and we have a USB connection that's interfacing with whatever AV equipment we have in the room. What the Modena product does is it creates a wireless interface between all of those devices in the room. So in this instance, the instructor's laptop will be able to connect over the Wi-Fi to this product and actually use the USB peripherals and the HDMI connection to the display as if they were connected locally. So again, two functions, wireless sharing and wireless USB, all over this wireless connection, standard Wi-Fi. There are standalone apps for the Modena product with support for Windows, Mac, Android, and iOS. It's a consistent UI across all the platforms, so regardless of what platform you're using, it's going to be a similar experience. If you don't want to install an app, there is a browser-based experience. There will be a welcome screen on whatever display is attached to the Modena hub, and it will have an IP address that you can dial in or type into any browser, and it will allow you to present wirelessly just through your browser. So very quick and easy. You can get up and start presenting in less than a minute, and most major browsers are supported, as you can see: Chrome, Firefox, and I guess it's Edge now. In addition to wireless presentation, we have wireless USB. So everything goes into a USB hub, and then that USB hub's connected to the Modena. And the Modena actually you can select which USB peripherals are assigned as webcams, microphones, and speakers. And then once the BYOD laptop is connected to those, it's the same workflow as we're used to on all soft codecs. So once you're connected to the Modena hub and you're presenting, you can have the option of using the USB peripherals that are attached to it, in which case you will select the Modena hub as your microphone, speaker, and your camera in whatever soft codec you're using, and it will use those devices connected to the Modena hub as if they're connected to your laptop. So We're not changing the workflow here. We're just changing the device that you select, right? So for me, instead of selecting my Logitech camera and my Tesira XUBT in my Microsoft Teams, I would just select Modena Hub, and whatever's connected to that would be used as my camera, microphone, and speaker. So super easy, super familiar workflow. We're not trying to, put up any roadblocks to use the AV equipment wirelessly. Since we're just using a standard USB driver on the computer end, all of the UC codecs that use USB peripherals will recognize the Modena Hub as a device. So it's supported with all of these UC codecs. Obviously, down at the bottom, you can see things change sometimes, but as of right now, we work with Modena works with all of these soft codecs. Briefly touching on the network side, I'm not going to read all this out, but we have a few options for our network infrastructure. One of them being with the Modena 1, like I mentioned, does not have the Wi-Fi support. So it would connect directly to corporate, or in this case, the school's network, which would have a wireless component to it. So any devices that are connected to the corporate network would have access to this Modena Hub to be able to select it and connect to it. The other way, another way to use this is standalone. So maybe you have a remote learning cart that goes around schools instead of adapting all of the classrooms. You can set up Modena 1 Plus to have its own Wi-Fi hotspot that's broadcasting locally. So any device would get on that Modena 1 Plus Wi-Fi and be able to use the devices attached to it. So if we don't have installed systems in each classroom, but it's a rolling cart, we can still set this up and treat it as if it's a wireless setup. And then, obviously we can, since the Modena 1 Plus still has that wired connection, we can build sort of hybrid models where there's a, sort of a break in the connection between the Wi-Fi hotspot and the corporate network on the wired connection. So guests can come in and still present, but they're not given access to the corporate network. And along those same lines, we can also connect that bridge so that it turns the Modena into sort of a bridge to both the corporate network and the internet, but it's sort of a local Wi-Fi network. So very flexible in terms of network. Whatever it needs to do, we can usually get it to work. So having introduced the Modena, just a quick how we would incorporate that into our design. Obviously, these are the wires we want to get rid of. Those both go into the Modena hub. So both the USB hub and the HDMI out to the monitor, those both now go to the Modena hub. And with the wireless network around the school, the instructor can now wirelessly connect to the Modena hub and present and take control of the USB AV devices to run their Skype class meeting or Microsoft Teams meeting and whatnot. So there's a fully contactless classroom now with Biamp solutions. So we'll recap briefly here. In our goals for contactless AV, we can adhere to physical distancing guidelines and other public restrictions, no problem, because with our Parlé beam tracking mics, it doesn't matter where the furniture is in the room, our mics will adapt and continue to only track to talkers in the room to maximize intelligibility, regardless of where the talkers are or how many desks are there. No reprogramming needed. In-person and remote learning simultaneously, of course. we're just doing a conference call at that point, which is what Biamp does best. So with our Parlé mics and our XUBT, we have a bridge into any soft codec, and the remote students' voices on the far side are going to be maximized intelligibility because of our CIC6 ceiling speakers that are designed for conferencing applications. Minimize or eliminate the contact, that's Modena in a nutshell. So we have the ability to wirelessly share our presentation and wirelessly connect to the USB AV equipment, no problem. And I forgot to mention when I was talking about Modena, but if the students have access to the wireless network too, they could also share their screens. The instructor could allow a student to share their screen up to the display wirelessly if everybody's on the same Wi-Fi network. It's not just a one connection. Multiple devices can be connected at the same time. And is it easy for operate? Yes, we're not reinventing the wheel on our UC workflow. So everybody at this point who's used a Zoom meeting knows where to go to change their microphone and their speaker and their camera. So we're just leveraging that workflow. Now, instead of a specific device, you're going to be selecting Modena Hub, and it'll be all set and ready to go. Briefly, before I end, I also wanted to mention that since we're talking about UC platforms and remote learning, and schools may have different UC platforms that they ally themselves with. So Biamp has certified solutions for Google Meet, Microsoft Teams rooms, and Zoom rooms. Not only do we have certified solutions, but Microsoft Teams, we are fully certified. We went through a weeks-long testing period to make sure our gear matched their expectations. So Microsoft Teams were fully certified. And then you may notice down here we have these 4-room deployment packages, which is kind of a new thing we announced last week. And I just wanted to go over those real quickly because it just so happens that one of these room deployment packages fits very well with the example that I showed here. We have complete system bundles from Biamp now. So these are basically a conference system in a box. We give you 4 speakers, 2 Parlé microphones, the Tesira Connect and the XUBT and the DSP, everything instead of needing to piece it out into multiple line items. This is just the LRB-C, or the large room bundle ceiling. We also have medium room bundles with ceiling mics, and then we have both large and medium room bundles with table mics. So very easy to just, you need a classroom that needs a large room bundle. Just put this LRB-C on the quote, and this is going to give you everything you need, not just the Biamp gear, but it's also going to give you the category cables to interconnect everything. So we even give you the cables. We're making it as simple as possible. And on top of that, since we know what gear you ordered, we have a room deployment tool for you that once you install everything and get it hooked up to the Tesira Connect, you can then go in, connect everything, and run this room deployment tool, which is going to find all the components on the network and deploy a known certified configuration for your soft codec of choice, be it Microsoft Teams, Zoom, or Google Meet. And then from there, you can tweak the volume, room acoustics, and if you need it, noise reduction and echo reduction. So literally, you can go from connecting to the control port on a Tesira Forte to have a room ready to make a call in less than 5 minutes. It's very easy to do. From there, if you need to make any further tweaks, we're not locking anything out, so you can connect with Tesira software like usual and do any final tweaks you may need to do. But the goal here is when we have the need to change over 15 classrooms to allow for remote participation, we need to be able to cookie cutter these, and this room deployment tool is going to be rapid and repeatable to be able to get all these rooms online before school starts in 4 weeks, right? So one more check mark on this that we didn't know we needed at the beginning, but efficient and repeatable deployments with this room deployment tool and room bundles. If you've got 10 classrooms that need 2 mics and 4 speakers, just order 10 of those kits, use the room deployment tool, and you'll be able to get all those knocked out very quickly. All this, a lot of this information is included in a new design guide that marketing put together for us. So we'll include that. We'll email it out to everybody at the end of this. But this gives you the equipment list and all the a little bit of info, and it's nice and customer facing if you want to go and have those discussions with the schools that you work with. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Ben, Dave Ellison here. Quick question. The room deployment tool, the actual software, where does that live? Where does that come from?
So when you buy, well, you can get to it from our website. If you go up to biamp.com and you go to the solutions tab, there's the 3 soft codecs that we're certified with. You can click on Google Meet, Microsoft Teams Rooms, or Zoom. And then there's a little, depending on what room size you choose, there's a collateral package that you can download, and the room deployment tools are included in that package. If you purchase one of our pre-configured kits, like I just mentioned, there will be a QR code in the box that will point you directly to the website where you can download that that room deployment tool.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, I appreciate your guys' time today. Let us know if you have any questions or need any more information, and we'll send out a link to this recording if you want to share it, and we'll get you that design guide.
Great presentation, Ben. Is that PowerPoint available for inside purposes?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I'll ping you. Great presentation, as always.
Yeah, great job, Ben. Thank you very much.
That's good, Ben. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Excellent. Excellent.